During the memorial service, the loyal dog, Shadow, kept barking in front of his owner's closed casket. After some hesitation, the family agreed to open it, but what they found inside left everyone in terror. On the day of Officer Daniel West's funeral, a steady rain poured as a group of mourners entered the cemetery. Daniel's family, who hadn't seen him in almost 5 years, had traveled from Texas to attend the service in New York. They sat near the coffin while his fellow officers, all in uniform, arrived one by one. Walking solemnly beside the officers was Shadow, Daniel's loyal Canine partner. The dog had served alongside the late officer and was clearly heartbroken by the loss. Daniel and Shadow's partnership had started off with difficulty, but within months, they became inseparable. Now, Shadow was devastated by the sudden and unexpected death of his partner during a dangerous warehouse sting operation. As the officers positioned themselves between the mourners and the coffin, Shadow lay at their feet, watching. At first, the only sounds were the quiet sobs of Daniel's family. But when Shadow stood and approached the coffin, the air changed. The dog sniffed around the edge of the casket, whimpering softly. Then, Shadow let out a loud bark, startling the crowd. The officers tried to pull him back, but Shadow persisted, pulling against his leash and barking at the coffin. The crowd thought Shadow was overwhelmed by grief, but no one could have predicted the shocking discovery they were about to make. When Officer Daniel West joined the police department in 2015, he set his sights on joining the Canine unit. As a child, Daniel had always been close to dogs, never going anywhere without his beloved childhood companion. However, his first dog had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving Daniel heartbroken. Ready to welcome a new friend into his life, he was partnered with Shadow, a 3-year-old dog who had recently lost his previous handler under tragic circumstances. Due to the emotional trauma, Shadow had a hard time bonding with new handlers, making it difficult for him to find a permanent partner. Several officers had tried working with Shadow, but none of them had been able to form a lasting bond with him. Because of this, Shadow was considered a hard-to-place dog, and his future in the department was uncertain. But Daniel was determined. When he was assigned as Shadow's new partner, he arrived at the station with treats, a soft bed in the back of his car, and a heart full of patience. The first meeting didn't go as smoothly as Daniel had hoped. Shadow was wary, barking at him from a distance before reluctantly jumping into the patrol car. Still, Daniel remained hopeful. As the days passed, Daniel worked hard to build trust with Shadow, even setting up his home with blankets and toys in the hopes that one day, Shadow would feel comfortable enough to join him there. But after weeks of working together, the bond was slow to form. While Shadow would follow Daniel's commands during work, he preferred to return to the station's kennel instead of going home with his partner. That all changed 2 months into their partnership. A call came in about a young girl named Lucy who had gone missing during a hiking trip. Daniel and Shadow were dispatched to help with the search. Shadow, known for his excellent tracking skills, was given a piece of Lucy's clothing and set off to find her. The dog quickly picked up the scent and led Daniel through the forest. After some time, they found Lucy clinging to a cliffside after part of the trail had collapsed. Shadow barked to alert the others, and Daniel carefully rescued her with the help of emergency crews. After that day, something changed. Shadow finally trusted Daniel. For the first time, the dog climbed into the back seat of Daniel's car without hesitation and went home with him. Over the next year, their bond grew stronger, and they became an inseparable team. Their fellow officers were thrilled to see the once distant dog finally find his perfect partner. But their partnership was cut short on a fateful night in 2016. Daniel and Shadow were on a routine patrol when they were called to investigate a series of warehouse break-ins. They teamed up with a rookie officer, Josh, to keep an eye on a recently targeted location. Hours passed without incident until Shadow suddenly growled softly, alerting Daniel to movement near the warehouse. The officers moved in cautiously, but things quickly escalated. Shots were fired, and in the chaos, Daniel was fatally wounded while trying to protect his team. Shadow was also injured but survived. The entire department mourned the loss of Officer Daniel West, and his funeral was held a few days later. Shadow, still grieving the loss of his partner, was brought to the service to say goodbye. That's when the unthinkable happened. Shadow began barking frantically at the closed casket, refusing to calm down. After repeated attempts to quiet the dog, the family reluctantly agreed to open the coffin. What they found inside left them horrified. The body in the casket wasn't Daniel. The mother of the fallen officer screamed, demanding to know what had happened to her son. Shadow, now calm, lay silently beside the grave, as if he had known all along that something was wrong. The mystery of Daniel West's disappearance had only just begun. Max, on the other hand, finally grew silent, lying down next to the grave. It seemed as if the dog had known all along that the coffin did not belong to Officer Ethan Carter. The crowd stood in stunned silence, unsure of what to do next. Ethan's family was beside themselves with grief and anger, demanding answers about the missing body of their son and brother. How could such a mistake have been made, and where was Officer Carter? The officers present immediately contacted their superiors, and within minutes, the funeral home staff and police were scrambling to find answers. It was clear that something had gone terribly wrong, and Max had been the first to notice. As the chaos unfolded, Ethan's mother clutched the uniform coat her son had worn, sobbing as she repeatedly asked where her son was. Meanwhile, Max, still lying silently beside the coffin, seemed to have done his job one last time, uncovering a mystery that no one else had even realized was there. The officers on site were ordered to secure the area while an investigation began immediately. The police department took over the case, and detectives were dispatched to find out how such a critical mistake had happened. The focus shifted from the funeral to uncovering the shocking truth about Officer Carter's whereabouts. After hours of tense discussions and heartache, the funeral was postponed. Ethan's family was escorted to a secure location as investigators began reviewing security footage and hospital records. The senior officer who had suggested opening the coffin watched in disbelief as the whole situation unfolded. He knew that the department would not rest until they got to the bottom of this. Days passed, and the investigation revealed a horrifying truth. Ethan Carter had never died in the hospital. The body in the casket belonged to someone else entirely. A mix-up had occurred during the chaos of the warehouse shootout. The real Ethan Carter was still missing, and the department now had to launch a full-scale manhunt to find him. Max was placed back under the care of Officer Ethan's closest colleagues, and his behavior remained calm but alert, as if he was waiting for his partner to come home. The loyal Canine seemed to understand more than anyone else what had happened, and refused to leave his post at the officer's empty home. The search for Ethan Carter intensified, with police uncovering evidence that suggested foul play may have been involved in his disappearance. The officers who had been at the scene of the warehouse shooting were interrogated, and it became clear that someone had tampered with the hospital's records. As the mystery deepened, the community rallied around Officer Carter's family, hoping for his safe return. Max continued to serve as a constant reminder of the bond between him and his partner, and the dog's instincts proved invaluable in the investigation. Weeks later, a breakthrough occurred. Ethan was found alive but severely injured in an abandoned warehouse miles away from the original crime scene. He had been left for dead by the gang of thieves who had targeted the warehouse. The officer had been taken hostage after the shootout, and his identity had been deliberately swapped with that of a criminal who had died at the hospital. Ethan's recovery was slow but miraculous, and the moment he was reunited with Max was one of overwhelming joy and relief. The loyal dog had been right all along, and his persistence had ultimately led to the discovery of his partner. The two were finally back together, and Max's bravery became a symbol of unwavering loyalty. Ethan's story spread across the country, inspiring others with the powerful bond between human and dog. The officer's recovery and the loyalty of his Canine companion became a tale of hope, resilience, and the incredible instincts of animals. Max was given an award for his heroic efforts, and both he and Ethan continued their service together, proving once again that a dog's loyalty knows no bounds.